Come to an end. Life's gonna pass with certainty. On this you can depend. Time is on your side. Still you can decide what you leave. God is standing by. Tell me, do you like what you see? You've been what you wanted to be. Be your legacy. Are you known for the good that you've done? What will be your legacy? You have one chance to write your story. So what's it gonna be? Your legacy. So often we are living in the moment, not thinking about this paper time. It's time to get house in order with a thought of God in mind. Time is on your side, still you can't decide what you leave behind. God is standing by. Now tell me, do you like what you see? Have you been what you wanted to be? Will be your legacy. Are you known for the good that you've done? What'll be your legacy? Be your legacy. You had one chance to write your story. So what's it gonna be? Oh, your legacy. Will you have fortune or fame to show? Is it your name that you want them to know? Do you want it known that you love the Lord? Will they say it was God that you love? What will be your legacy? Are you known for the good that you've done? What will be your legacy? You have one chance to write your story, and I will be your legacy. Better be careful what you do. Better be careful what you say. Better be right for what you live. Better be careful what you give. You have one chance, one time, one life. So what's it gonna be? Your legacy. A destiny that for sure will come to an end. Life's gonna pass with certainty. On this you can depend. Time is on your side. Still you can decide what you leave behind. God is standing by. Tell me, do you like what you see? You've been what you wanted to be. Your legacy. Are you known for what you've done? Be your legacy. see. You have one chance to write your story. So what's it gonna be? See. So often we are living in the moment, not thinking about this paper time. It's time to get your house in order. Time is on your side. Still you can't decide what you need. God is standing by. Now tell me, do you like what you see? You have one chance to write your story. So what's it gonna be? Your legacy. Your legacy.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to Birmingham Bible Church's Winning Wednesday. That was a song by Wayburn Dean. I love Wayburn Dean's music. It just seems so befitting for our Wednesdays that we have here. That song was "What Would Be Your Legacy?" And of course, he's talking about, are you going to be known by the good that you have done? That song really resonates on today because what's going to be your legacy as pertaining to wills? And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But welcome all of you to our to those who are watching on Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, on Twitter, through the My Sunday app, if you are watching through our website, bhambc.org, welcome everyone. Of course, on today, we love to declare that you are a winner and that you are victorious. The scripture says, but thanks be to God who has given us the victory. And so here on Wednesdays, we want to bring you all kinds of topics to help all of us to be victorious in our health, in our finances, mentally, socially, just in every area of our lives. So welcome on today. Of course, as always, we ask that you share this broadcast with someone that you know, someone that you love. Please tag them. If you're watching on Facebook, tag them in the comment section, do the @ and then put their name. Make sure you text them this broadcast, copy the link, whatever it is you have to do to get the word out, please do so, because we want all of us to get the same information so that all of us can be blessed. So this is another tough subject. If you're like me, you watch the news and you see that people, of course, pass. And I'm looking at celebrities, and a lot of times you think that after they die, they had a will, and then it comes out like just days later they didn't have a will. And I'm thinking they had all this money. I can see some of us like, well, I ain't got the money for that, but you have celebrities who have the money who can purchase, just thousands of wheels, but they don't for whatever reasons. And so I text Katrina, I think a couple of months ago, I said, hey, listen, I think it's time to do this again, just to remind people just why you need to get a wheel, also just to get an update. She's going to talk about that too, because things change. And so you may need to update your will. And so she's going to give us all the scoop on that. So of course we have with us on today, Katrina Graham. She's been with us before. She's also a trademark attorney. She does a plethora of things, but she is great. She's down to earth. We have been connected for many years, and I'm so glad she's always available to us when I have a question about something or need a referral, trying to refer her to somebody. But she is just an awesome person. And so we're going to have her talk about what she does. She has her own law firm, Creative Mind Law. So I want her to talk about that as well. And then we're going to dive into the discussion. And then, of course, if you need somebody to help you with your will, Katrina is going to be the person to do it, y'all. I'm telling you, you will not be disappointed. So I bring to you guys on today, Katrina Graham. Hey, Katrina.
Hi, good people. How are you, Pam?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. I'm good. I'm excited to have this
Yeah.
serious conversation. We're going to try to make it fun, but it's
Yeah.
a topic that we need to talk about. So I'm excited to be able to do that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I remember last time, I don't know if it was last time, but one time before you talked about the character on Jefferson's, Sherman Hemsley, and how
Mhm.
because he didn't have a will, it took them 5 years to bury him.
Well, it
Is that
wasn't
right?
five, but my buddy was outside the ground for a good little bit. I don't know the
Right.
exact time, but he
Right.
was above ground, even though he wasn't here anymore for quite a while. And the same is true when you look at Aretha Franklin,
Yes.
um, and
Chadwick.
Chadwick
Chadwick.
Boseman,
Hmm.
so many different celebrities that we love and that we respect, who contribute in whatever way to us, who just were not prepared to die. And so I'm excited to talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that today.
Good. Awesome. Well, Katrina, of course, I know you, but for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, your law firm, what you do.
So my law firm is Creative Mind Law. We have been in full effect. This will be year 4. We're going into year 4. And so we specialize in trademarks, copyright, and business solutions. In that business solution, we are that includes wills and succession plans for business owners. And by succession plans, one of the conversations that I like to have with my clients who have established businesses: who are you planning to leave this business to? What is your exit strategy, right? Are you planning to sell? Do you want the employees to be able to buy in? Do you just want to close the business down when you die? Are you planning on passing this business to someone in your family? And if that is the case, what will that succession look like? What are we leaving them? And I've said this before. I know this is not necessarily related to the topic that we're going to talk about today. I always tell people you can build your business up. We see it all the time. People build these amazing businesses, especially in the Black community. They build a restaurant, and everybody love to eat it. And when Big Mama died, the food quality goes down, and it's because Big Mama was excited about leaving the business to the children, but the children don't know how to cook like Big Mama, and they also don't have the character or the integrity to carry the business the way that Big Mama did. They don't have the customer service experience. And so I always tell people, as you're deciding on legacy, as we're talking about legacy building, make sure that we are creating and building up children who have the integrity and the wherewithal to carry not only the name of the business, but also the core values of that business. And so those things kind of play into the succession plan for business owners. So, but we're going to be talking about the individuals today. We're going to be talking about, going through the basic stuff. What is a will? What is a power of attorney? What is a living will? What is a trust? And I'm going to try to keep it as basic as possible, only because we're limited in the amount of time. We'll talk about why people don't get wills today. And we'll just talk about, I'll answer some questions that I normally get from individuals and what that looks like. And then it'll be yours.
That sounds great to me.
All right. But let me know when we're ready to rock and roll.
Okay, we are ready. You know what? I'm gonna interject one other thing, because when you were talking about business solutions, I think everybody who has a business needs to come see you. I remember you were saying, I think it might have been on Clubhouse, and you were saying that if you're in partnership with someone, go ahead and talk about now. If y'all have rifts and y'all decide to, go apart, let's go ahead and talk about what that looks like now, as opposed to So anyway,
I'm one attorney. This is not true. This what I'm about to say is not reflective of other attorneys. I'm sure the vast majority of them disagree with me. I don't believe in partnership agreements. I don't.
All right.
Let me put it like this. I don't believe in equal partnerships agreements. That's just how I feel. There's nothing wrong with them for other people. I don't believe in them, and I have to share that at another time. But I do say, I don't care if you're going into business with baby daddy, baby mama,
right,
your auntie, your homegirl down the street. Y'all been best friends since y'all was 2 years old in the crib. Doesn't matter. Things need to be put in writing, and so that again is a part of that business solution. But it also talks about the succession plan, because when you're in a partnership with someone who is not your daughter or your child, and you want to leave that business to a child, and your friend wants to leave her business to that child, what does that succession plan looks like for these two people who did not agree from the very beginning to go into business together? And so we talk a little bit about those things and just planning for the holistic health of a business.
Good. Yeah, I just wanted to add that in there too, because when you said business solutions, I said, yeah, she does so much and talk about so much with that. So thank you for that. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get into our wheels. Importance of wheels. Yeah.
So just really quickly, I want to say this. Why do you need estate planning? So usually when we talk about estate planning, we just say wills, but estate planning covers more than just a will. It's about power of attorney. It's about a living will, which is also known as an advanced directory. It also include what we call a trust. But why is estate planning so important? And the number one reason is because it's going to cut out on drama. Nothing will tear a family up. Nothing will tear a family apart than when big mama or big daddy die and they got a little money, or they got a house, or they got some pictures, or they got some jewelry, or whatever it is, right? Nothing tears a family up. I have seen it with my own eyes, how children of the particular person who's passed away will just all out assault each other, both physically, emotionally, verbally, and because they are feel like they're entitled to more. I've also seen it with business owner. I've seen a father who had a very successful construction company that he built with another son, and another son who had helped along financially felt like he should be the front runner, where there was no will in place, there was no succession plan in place. And so now these brothers, to this day, this has been going on for 5 years, are still fighting this out because the father did not have a plan in place. And so when we talk about having an estate plan, not just wills, but an estate planning, what does that look like for you? It is important for you to know that needs to happen. It's going to cut down on the family drama. Now, when we talk about estate planning, just very simple terms, it is a collection of documents that specify how you want your money or other assets to be distributed. It makes it easier for your loved ones, and it puts your affairs in order while people are dealing with grief, because grief has its own level. Speaking as someone who has lost a parent, the level of grief that you feel during that time, and then to have to deal with some of these other things, it is a relief when you have parents who die who have their affairs in order. It is a relief when you have people who die who have their affairs in order. And I remember, I love Lean on Me. One of my favorite movies is two lines that I love. One is when Joe Clark is talking to the other black guy, I can't think of his name, being somebody, but they're talking about the school, and he's like, you have to do this. And he looks up and he said, I don't gotta do nothing but one thing, stay black and die. Okay, so that's the first one. Then my other favorite line in the movie is when the guy was like, you don't understand, Mr. Clark. And the girl's like, no, Mr. Clark don't love you because you don't take care of your responsibilities. That doesn't have anything to do with this, but
Right.
that's my two favorite lines. Let's go back to the stay black and die. The reality is we are all leaving here. Some quicker than others. But we are going, unless the Lord come part these skies and the trumpet sound, you're gonna die. That's just point blank period. Even if you live to be 200 years old, you're going to die. The Bible says that is appointed to men once to die, and after that is the judgment. That's the book, right? The Bible lets us know that life is but a vapor. This is what the Bible says. The Bible says that life is but a vapor. Do you know what a vapor is? When you blow, it's cold and you blow on glass, how quickly it goes. God compares your life to that. He says this is what the summation of your life is. Even if you live to be 300 years old, God still says it is a vapor compared to eternity. So when you're looking at yourself from that perspective, not in how you're living now, not in what you've achieved in this life, but that God himself has said it is a vapor, that lets you know time is of the essence. And so a lot of times we live like we're never going to die. We live spiritually like we're never going to die. And so we don't repent. And I know this is not Bible study, but since I'm talking to church folks, let me
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, we live our lives like we don't need to repent, like we don't need to get it right, because we think we're going to have tomorrow to do that, right? We live our lives in a way, both spiritually and secularly, like we're going to be here forever. And when you look, I'll never forget, I was getting my hair done, and somebody texted me and said, Chadwick Boseman died. I don't know Chadwick better than I know this Starbucks cup. I know this Starbucks cup better than I know Chadwick Boseman. But I'll tell you, when that man died, it affected me. You know what I mean? Like, I was just like, dang, he was so young. This man had so much promise, an amazing actor, all these things just going for him, just an amazing member of society as far as we know, right? And yet he leaves here, right? And so it is a wake-up call to all of us that it can be any of us at any time. And so I say all that to say is when I talk about estate planning, I need you to see this, that it is for you. It's not for Big Mama. You might leave here before Big Mama. You may leave here before your children. Children will leave here before their parents. And so we need to understand that when we're talking about estate planning, you need to be talking about your estate planning. And so I want to talk a couple of, I'm going to explain what they are, and then I want to talk through why people don't do it, because I think this is very helpful. So number one, the one thing we all talk about is a will. And a will, first things first about a will is it states out where you want things to go, gives direction. I want this to go here. I want you to have this. I want this money to be donated here. I want this to go this place. All it is it points direction. It's no different than when you're on the interstate and it tells you to exit, blah, blah, blah. It's giving direction on where you need to go, where things need to go, where the asset, where the money, where the house needs to go. And so in that will, you will appoint what we call an executive. That's the person that you trust to make sure that the things that you have stated in the will, the directions that you have given this will, that person makes sure that those desires are carried out. So you're going to have an executor. Your executor does not need to be your family. It doesn't have to be family. And when you choose your executive, don't choose your oldest child because they're the oldest child. Choose the responsible child. I think sometimes as parents, we feel like, well, you know, Bertha, she the oldest, but Bertha can't keep 2 nickels in her pocket. Bertha in and out of jail. Bertha Bertha is irresponsible. Right. We need to put Bebe in charge because Bebe take care of his business. My point is that when you're picking your executor, make sure you're not picking based on who you like, but who will respect and make sure things are carried out. Sometimes they're not family members. Sometimes it's a best friend. Sometimes it's an aunt. Sometimes it's a church member. But you need to make sure that whoever you choose is somebody you respect and somebody who's going to honor your wishes. Also, you need to make sure that when you're choosing your executor, that you let them know that you've chosen them, because I've actually had somebody die and people call me like they made you the executive of their account. Say, well, no, I don't want that responsibility. I don't want to be because there is some fiduciary duties that come with being an executive. So when you're choosing somebody, make sure you let them know. A lot of times as parents and as people, We like to keep things secretive, and then when we die, they can figure it out. No, let people know, hey, I put
Right.
baby in charge of the estate. I want everybody to know baby gonna be the one and making sure my wishes get carried out, not Bertha. Or I'm gonna make sure that Aunt Bessie is in charge and not Bertha. You want to let people, we're not hiding things. It's so important to have these conversations up front so that children don't feel slighted when parents die, or that parents don't feel slighted when children die. Siblings don't feel slighted when another sibling dies. Have these conversations up front. Be honest with your children and let them know why you're doing it this way, right? So we talk about a will. The next thing, the other important thing about a will is that it does not take effect until you die. Wills have no power until you die, right? You have to be deceased for a will to actually have power. The next thing is we have a power of attorney. Now, a power of attorney is when you lose capacity or the inability to make decisions for yourself. And so a power of attorney, I always call it a dual power of attorney. That person that you're appointing and you're still alive, we're not talking about you're deceased, a power of attorney, you're still alive, but you do not have capacity, whether that's physically or mentally, to make decisions for yourself. So now you have appointed someone that you trust to handle your business. They're literally doing business as if they were you. They're doing business in your name. Kind of how like I would forge my mama name when I was in trouble in school. I had her signature down. Okay, I know it has nothing to do here, neither or there. I repented for that, but that person is doing business as you. So when you appoint somebody a power of attorney, make sure you understand that you don't have to be deceased for this to take place. And you want to make sure that you're appointing it to someone who's not going to empty out your bank account. I had a client one time that we did a power of attorney for, and this was before I went into private practice. And we knew that the client had been diagnosed with dementia, but they were not fully into that. And so they had signs of dementia, but they still had capacity most of the time. And so the child that they appointed, once the parent they started taking all the money out of the bank account and paying their own bills, and mama bills were slacking. And so the other siblings got together and said, we need to change out the power of attorney. Well, it's hard to change out the power of attorney once it's been appointed, especially when the person who gives the assignment no longer has capacity. So now you have to go to a probate court and get a guardianship or conservatorship. And so this is what I mean about making sure that whoever you choose as your power of attorney is somebody who is responsible and somebody who trusts, somebody that lives and walks in integrity, and that's going to be able to handle your estates. And so that power of attorney literally does business in your name, whether it's medical, whether it's your bank account, whether it's houses. The ones that I draft said that they can buy houses, sell property, like all of that in your name, okay? So that's a power of attorney. And then we have what we call a living will. And a living will, another name for that is what we call an advance directory. And that's just saying is a form or a statement that details your desires regarding your medical treatment in circumstances that you are no longer available to give informed consent. In other words, if you want to be on a feeding tube, if you want to be resuscitated, if you want to have life-sustaining medication or things administered to you. And so a living will, usually when I do an estate, even if somebody's just paying me for a will, I usually throw in a POA and a living will in the package, just because you need all three of them. And then the other thing we have is a trust. And we would have to have a whole nother meeting to talk about trust. But I tell you, trust is one of the things that as a race of people, we need to look more into, especially as our assets begin to grow. Because if you have a house, you can put your house in your trust. You can put, depending on how trusts are written, they don't have to go through probate. And so you avoid the money that's attached to having to go to probate. I honestly do not have enough time to talk about trust the way that it needs to be talked about. But we always say wills, but trust sometimes is the better option for a particular person, depending on the assets that they have. Okay. And so I want to talk really quickly about why some people don't have will, but I want to read this statistic that I read. It says that 1 in 3 Americans say they have a will. And yet 67% of Black people do not. So 1 in 3 people say they have a will. 63% of Black people do not. 6% of African American people do not, and 61% of non-white Americans do not. So that is pitiful. That is sad. And I think one of the reasons, I'm going to share a couple of my thoughts. One of them is because most times when I talk to people about this, they don't think they have enough assets. They don't think they have anything, right? They'll say, well, I don't own my house, or I don't have this, I don't have that. But most times they have a bank account, they have earrings, they have pictures, they have an asset is not just a house. An assets are things that you value that you would like to give to someone. When I have and I'll just share a personal story. When I was a little girl, my dad used to have these books that he got from his great grandmama. There are these three brown ebony books that they gave out when my dad was a child. He got them from his great grandma. And when I was a little girl, I would sit on the floor and I would just read those books all the time. They were about Black history. And some of the older people definitely know what I'm talking about. I wish I had them with me so I could show them to you. But if my house were to catch on fire right now, other than saving my mama, my husband, my mink lashes, and my weed, I'm going to go get those three books because they have sentimental value to me, right?
Right.
And so when I turned 25, my dad wrote me this beautiful letter in one of the books and gave them to me as an inheritance. Now, for you, that may not mean anything because they're just Black history books. But for me, because they came from his great grandmama to his grandmama to him to me, they are sentimental to me. So they may not have a dollar value, but for me, they mean something. And so when I have children, or if I don't have children, I have to decide which one of my nieces and nephews that I think will take care and value this sentimental value that has been passed down in our family. So when we're talking about assets, we're not just talking about a house or a car. We're talking about the things that mean something to you. Pictures of grandmother. In our family, you're not going to be around the Dunhams, the Browns, the Huffmans, the Grahams, and not take some photos. My husband is an introvert. He does not like, he says this all the time. He's never seen a picture snapped so much until he became a member of my family. And that's because we value pictures. We value, because we realize that you're not going to be here all the time. And so I love to go look at my parents' wedding photo album. And I love to go and look at pictures of me when I was a baby or Mary was a baby. I love pictures. So we take a ton of pictures in our family. And so what I'm saying is that somebody has to be the steward of these things that are important to our families. And so when I'm talking to you about assets, I'm not just talking about cars. So a lot of us don't get wheels because we don't think that we have anything. Even if you only have $5 in your account. Well, if you just got $5, don't worry about it. But if you got $7, okay, let's just put $2 more in there. If you have an account, if you don't have someone already on that account named, you will not be able to access that account. I've actually had to file probate documents for people. I had a young lady whose dad died, had $10,000 in the account. Really, that if the dad had just put her name in, she would have been able to access. And she ended up having to give me money to pay me to file something with the court just so she could access the money. Because once you die, the bank doesn't care if you come in and say, this is my dad, this is my mama, unless your name is on that account. They're not going to do it. So making sure that you have these things that you think are not that big of a deal in place so that you can avoid the legal fees and the probate fees that come with not being prepared. So when I say, again, understanding when we say assets, that we're not just talking about property, okay? One of the other reasons is some people think they are too young. One of the elders at my church, Brother Woodard, says this all the time. If you die at 15, you're already old. Point blank period. Some of us think too highly. The Bible says that we should not think too highly of ourselves. It's not just talking about ego. This is talking about thinking that we're going to be living forever, that we're too young. Young people die every day. Yep. Young people die every day. And so a lot of times, again, because we think, oh, we're too young, we have tomorrow, we got tomorrow. No, you may not have tomorrow, and you may have tomorrow, but you may not have the day after tomorrow. So don't let your age be the deciding factor of when you will get an estate plan or have an estate plan in place. So understanding that as well. One of the other things is that, as especially us, we don't like to talk about death. We want to talk about everything else. We gossip. We do everything else but talk about death. Yep. You are going to die. There is no other way around it. But we think because we don't, that if we talk about it, we're going to jinx ourselves. baby, what the Lord has appointed the day that you will die, He knows it. My thing is that not talking about it doesn't delay it at all. And
Right.
so a lot of times, because we don't want to talk about the hard things, we don't want to have the tough conversations, we avoid it all together. So that's another reason. I'm not going to go through all my reasons, but I wanted to kind of share that because a lot of us fall into that category. A lot of us fall into some of these reasons why we don't have an estate plan. So let's see, talk a little bit about that. Other things I want to talk about really quickly, and then I'll answer some questions. Is I talked to why do you need an estate plan from the beginning, very beginning, because it cuts down on the drama, but also it takes care of how you want to be treated at the end of your life. That goes back to the living will. You know, one of the things you have to understand, my dad died suddenly. I didn't, he wasn't sick, he didn't have cancer. I literally talked to him on a Sunday. I was at work. My mama called me and said, we got to get to the ER. We were not expecting my father to pass away. He was not sick at all. And I'll tell you, people who've lost loved ones who were sick have a different opinion than those of us who lost people suddenly. And I'm not going to debate that one way or the other. But I tell you, it's one of the most traumatic things that I've ever experienced, talking to someone one day and then not talking to them, or they're not even existing the next, right? Because it was so unexpected. But one of those things that when you have children, if you're one of the ones who may have cancer or may have some type of illness where you go on for a long time before you die, I've seen children struggle and even argue with other siblings about whether mama needs to be resuscitated, whether mama needs to have life sustaining emotion. I've seen people leave their people on ventilators for years because emotionally they could not make the decision. And so sometimes as a parent, sometimes as a husband or as a wife, you take the burden off of your spouse and off of your children, off your parents by deciding that up front. I don't want to be resuscitated. If they come to you and say, hey, she brain dead, y'all go ahead and let me go. I'm now releasing you from the burden of having to carry that with you for the rest of your life. And so when I say, why do you need it? Well, number one, it relieves your children and your family members and the people who love you from the guilt of thinking maybe they should have left you or maybe they took you off too early. But it allows you to make the decision now while you're still in your right mind, as my grandma say, your right mind, and why you still have the ability to do so. So you alleviate that. We talked about it points where the benefits and where things need to go, but also it helps you plan for your future investments and accounts, and it makes you take assessment of what you actually have. Nothing. My sister and I were talking about something totally different yesterday, but she said this to me, and I was like, "Oh, this is so good." She said, "I need to write that down." She said, "Because when I put it on paper, that's when I know I'm gonna do it." And so sometimes we're just writing down what you have. You may say, "Well, I don't have anything," but then when you start looking around your house, like, "Well, I got Mama's mink coat, and I got Papa's cufflinks, and I got," so then you start writing things down and you realize you have a lot more than you did. Also, my husband and I are going through some estate planning right now. We don't even have children, but we've been talking about it. What do we want to acquire so that we can pass it down? Right. And so having those conversations now, we're planning on, we have taken part in some investment properties, right? We want to get some more because we want to be able to leave this legacy for if we have children or if we decide to pass it on to our nieces and nephews. What does that look like? So having these conversations up front allows you to even plan about what do you need to do to make sure that you leave the type of estate or the type of legacy you want to leave, right? Arranging trust will decide, especially for parents with young kids. If you were to die, there used to be a time Black people couldn't get life insurance, right? I remember my big mama, my auntie Susan, and my mama's mama. She used to have an insurance guy that would come by. I can't think of his
For the
name.
house.
If any of my family is in a check, put his name in the check. But it was this white man, he used to drive a beetle bull, and he was too tall to be in that beetle bull. My boy was about 7 feet tall in that little bitty car, but neither here nor there. And he would come by And my grandma, he would come and he would sit, he'd call his Sue, and they call my grandma Teal. And he would get this money and they would be paying on their life insurance. That's how they paid their life insurance. And it wasn't a whole lot of money because we didn't get $1 million policies. But now we have the ability to get $300,000 policies, $1 million policies. We can get 150,000 policies, whatever it is, the amount that you think is sufficient for your children, right? But one of the things as a parent, if you have young kids and you die and your child is 10, or you die and your child is 12, what happens to the money? So when you create a trust, you put somebody that you trust in charge of it to make sure that that money goes to your children. You can design it in a way that they get certain parts of that money at certain times, right? Or that they don't get it at this stage and they get it at this stage. And what does that look like? And so you can create those types of things, not necessarily through a will, but you can arrange it passing through a trust for your children. So you can do distribute money through a trust. You can put your house in a trust, right? If you, especially if you got some investment properties, you may. I've seen it done this way where you may have someone who's like, I want to have my children have my home. I want my kids to have my home, but I need them. I want to live in it while I'm here. So they'll set it up in a way through estate planning where they can still they have they can live in the house, but the ownership passes, right? Once they die. Or let's say this your second wife, because people get remarried, whatever. I'm not judging. Say it's your second wife and need some kids from your first wife, but you want to make sure that your second wife has a place to live. You can do this in estate planning, right? Again, these are the kind of conversations that we need to have because there are plenty of us that are on our second, not me, but there are plenty of people who are on their second marriage. They may be on their third marriage. Doesn't matter why. But if you want to protect this new wife or protect this new spouse, you need to set this up in estate planning. This is what I mean about you can seize the moment based on what you have going on. It gives you the ability to be able to designate who's going to be in charge, designate a guardian for your minors, and it protects your assets. So those are kind of how you do it. Another thing we don't talk a lot about is charitable giving in our wills and through how organizations that we love, maybe our church that we love, we can set it up in there where we can make sure that that particular church or that particular charitable organization gets that money from our estate. And so, yeah, and the most important thing is that it helps you avoid high taxes. And also a lot of legal fees. Estate planning can help you legally avoid expensive taxes that can negatively impact the amount or the value of your estate. And again, you would need to contact the lawyer to talk about your particulars individually, but that's why we call it estate planning, because it's not going to look the same for everybody based on where you are, what you have, what you do, your income. You need someone who can tailor your estate planning to where you are and where you want to go. And so they're not going to look. So when we say things like, I just need a will, well, you may need more than that. Do you have minors? Do you have insurance policies for them? Like, what does that look like if you drop dead tomorrow and they're still under the age? Do you have adult children? Well, now you may not need those things in place. And so you may be able, so everybody's estate planning process will look different based on what they have going on. And so, yeah, that's pretty much the spiel of it. I'm not one of those people who like to scare people to action, but I will say this, I think it's so important that we've seen enough people leave this place fast that we need to understand that it could be us next, literally. And so, and if it is, I know me personally, just thinking about the people that I love, like my sister and my mom, I tell my sister, my mom, and my husband, I tell them this all the time. If I leave, well, I tell my husband, if I leave, don't be over here remarrying nobody because I'm coming back and I'm 100. But also, he can get remarried after about 10 years or more than me. And if y'all see somebody patting my husband at my funeral too hard, y'all go ahead and slap their hand because no man.
Right.
But no, all jokes aside, let me say this. If I tell my sister and my mama and my husband this all the time, if I leave here, I know that you guys are going to be sad. I know you're going to be grieving me, but take this money and these things that I'm leaving you and live your life with it. And so I planned for my niece and my nephew to live a different type of life than I ever had at their age, right? But I just can't give a 10-year-old $500,000 or give an 8-year-old $300,000. So now we got to create a trust to make sure that they get that money at a certain age and that they can use it for what they need to use it for in their lives, right? And so yeah, and I, as an attorney, even though I can do my own estate planning, I didn't. I hired another attorney to estate plan for me because I wanted someone who was not emotionally attached to everything that was going on that could tell me, no, Katrina, you know good and darn well that don't make no sense. You can't do that. And so again, even a professional has to get another professional to help them plan their estates. And so, yeah, that's pretty much the spiel.
No, that's good. So Uncle Timmy is watching. He said Townsend is the name of that.
Uncle Timmy, thank you, Uncle Timmy.
Yeah, I said, who was it?
7 foot tall, trying to get in the beat bud. Now you know you got to be shamed, but hey, do what you got to do. Live below your means. Live below your means, my boy.
Right. No, you know what? This was really good. This was really good. A couple questions. Should married couples have separate estate plannings? That's probably a given question, but should they have separate ones?
I don't even know what my man got. Sir, we playing together, okay? It depends, and you know that's probably gonna be my answer for a lot of things. It depends because this is one thing we have to learn about as married people. And look, I only been married one day, so y'all don't even listen to me. I don't know much about marriage, but I do know this. I know that everybody's situation is different, and you cannot run your marriage based on how mom and daddy did it or how somebody else did. You have to have the conversation so you can figure out what works for you. If you are someone and this is your second wife and you have children from a previous marriage or a previous relationship or whatever, you know, you've got to have a conversation with your new spouse and your children about what you expect, even if they don't get along, what you expect in this. And so when we're talking about estate planning, if your new wife has children outside, she may have a life insurance from her past marriage for her children. You need to know that. You need to know these things. And so yeah, I would say if you can, you should estate plan together. But if you can't, you have some people who have houses before they got married. And maybe they had businesses before they got married. But here I'm all about laying things on the table, right? And when people say, well, you know, I don't trust my husband like that, I don't trust my wife like that, then y'all need to go counseling.
I know that's right.
Another conversation. But you know, at the same time, I really think it's important to have these conversations up front about what we're doing and how we go. One of the things that, without going into too many details, one of the things that Corey and I have talked about is Corey has a niece and a nephew, and I have 2 nieces and a nephew. And so we've talked about, you know, if I die, he knows the money that he has set aside for his niece and his nephew, they're going to get, he will tell you that he's like, I have no doubt that Katrina will make sure these things are taken care of. So, but we've had those conversations because even though they're both our nieces and nephews, we are preparing for them separately. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, but I know what his desires are for his niece and his nephew, and he knows what my desires are for my 3. And so we've had these kind of conversations. My point is, even if you don't estate plan together, have the conversation so the other person is not shocked. That I've seen people be so depressed and so sad that their spouses were hiding things from them and they didn't learn about it until they were dead, or that they didn't know that their spouse had sold a particular property that they thought that they could use for the rest of their lives, or that their spouse didn't prepare for them. And Lord be, if it's a second marriage and the children from the first marriage hate you, they make your life a living hell. But if your spouse has planned for you and you know about it and you put your hand on it, them little hateful children can't do nothing about it. So again, it cuts down on the drama. That's it in a nutshell, honestly.
Yes. Katrina, I'll do you one better. Someone told us of a situation where the man died and left everything to his girlfriend and not the wife. I do you one better than that.
And that's when you get your good lawyer and contest it.
That's it.
No, man.
That's it, right?
No, she's not gonna live. She's not gonna live her good life off me. No, man. But it happens, and people have a right. Yeah. People have a right to do what they want to do. And again, this is why, especially as wives, as women in relationships, because we're the ones that are most vulnerable when it comes to these things. Because a lot of times, especially as Christian women, have men who pay all the bills, or they take care of everything. And so when a person died, we don't know what nothing is. We couldn't tell you where we bank. We couldn't tell you who we got our cell phone service through. As a woman, you need to know what's going on in your household. I think, you know, I hear people say, my husband pay all the bills, and look, kudos to you. I'm glad. I'm with you. let them pay it. But I'm gonna know everything that coming in and
Right.
out of this house. I'm gonna know where everything I
Right.
can put my hand, I can put my name, I can touch
Right.
whatever it is that we have. Why? Because I'm involved in the business. This is
Right.
a household. And so a lot of times as women, we have passed over our responsibilities. We've passed over those things to our spouse, and then when they leave, we basically fall apart because we don't know anything. We can't do
Right.
anything. We don't know who to call, who to use to cut the grass.
Right.
So it's simple things like that. Whereas women,
Yeah.
especially, we have to make ourselves aware of what's going on in our houses. Seriously.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Katrina, what about the age of the executor? Because is there a certain age? I know they can't be 10, but what is the age of the
They just have to
person?
be they have to be the legal age.
Just the legal
So
age,
in our state, I
18,
think the legal age is 19. So
19.
they need to be a legal age. And again, I cannot stress this enough. I know people are probably rolling their eyes because I've said this 1,000 times, but make
Same
sure
here.
if the 19-year-old is more responsible than the 50-year-old, pick the 19-year-old. Period.
That's right.
Matter of fact, if the 10-year-old is more responsible than the 50-year-old, then pick the 10-year-old and get somebody else to be over. Like
Right.
when we're talking about this level of estate planning and because our generation now has more than the generation before us. We have to put somebody in place that will trust and not spend everybody else's money or try. And I've seen this with my own eyes last year, where there was a person who was a millionaire who passed away, and they were not married, but they've been the partners for life. Let me just put it that way, been partners forever. And he met someone, he had dementia, was going down really fast, and met this lady that was, taking him to a visit or whatever. And when he died, she went and filed intestate. Intestates mean that the person has no will. So here's another thing, and I don't want to make this more convoluted, but if you don't have a will, you can hire a lawyer to file an intestate, meaning that they don't have a will, but they do have assets, and we want the court to divide them and appoint an executor. So because he didn't have a will, she filed intestate. Well, his partner did not know about this. And
Mm.
by the time it went before a judge, she had already spent, I kid you not, that was $1 million estate. They may have $33,000 left.
Wow.
Now, can she be charged? Can we sue her? Yeah, you can sue her. But can you get blood from a turnip?
Turn it
No.
right. Right.
Bible said, can man take fire to his bosom and not be burned? Absolutely not. It's not possible. So yeah, you can sue, but who now you got to pay on attorney to sue. And you're not gonna get that money out of them because she done lived her best life
Right.
on it. So
Yeah.
again, understanding that estate planning is extremely important.
Right. And especially, I saw some people logging on, especially, we'll reiterate this, but especially if you have a business, how important it is to put somebody in charge who, a succession plan is what you called it. So those of
Mhm.
you who are business owners, please make sure you are doing this as well. Another question, so I want to make sure I understand. In your estate planning, there is a document, there's a will, there's a separate document that's a power of attorney, and
Mhm.
another separate one that's the living will, correct?
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, let me ask you, the trust, is that something that's verbally stated in the will, or is that another document?
So it can be both. Typically,
Okay,
you can put trust clauses in wills, but most attorneys who create trust, they usually create those documents themselves. This is why I didn't want to get into it because you can have. I'm sorry, I got a client calling me like
go ahead, go ahead.
I got in on do not disturb.
Okay,
But they can open up trust accounts. Like it's a whole again. We would have to have like another conversation to really, but because I'm telling you,
gotcha.
trust would work for a lot of people. We do not, rich people, they don't play by trusts. They do not play about a trust. They understand the tax benefits of trust. They understand how they can avoid probate with trust. A lot of us don't understand because we've never even heard of it. We just started getting a will yesterday. So it's like, now you're telling me I can get a trust. What does that do for me? So
Right,
we would literally have to have a whole nother session to talk about what a trust could do and if it would be beneficial for you. But I think that a lot of people would benefit probably more from a trust being created than just a will by itself.
gotcha. Okay, okay. Because I think it would be, to me, it sounds like it's beneficial if you have this. let's say $1 million insurance policy, and you don't want to give it to your child, but you want him to be able to, have money for, I don't know, clubs and camps and, sports and gymnastics and cheerleading, but somebody can actually be over that, making sure that, okay, I'm going to pull money out for that. I'm thinking this, or here is $2,000 a month. So, there's
Absolutely.
living expenses and food and clothes and all that stuff. Okay. And this is my last
I
question.
want to add one more thing. And especially if you have a child that is special needs, there is Alabama ain't got a lot of good things going for it, but boy, do we have a good thing in place for people who have kids with special needs. And we do not have time. Like this is one of those things where you just have to. But if you have a child with special needs, you can estate plan for them now, and you should already be thinking about. Especially if you have a child that may or may not be able to live on their own and take care of themselves. And so Alabama has an amazing compared to other places. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but they have specific things in what do they call it in the insurance company? They call it a particular vehicle that would work if you have kids who have disabilities or special needs. And so that's a whole nother conversation, but there is something that you can do because I know sometimes when you have children who have disabilities or you have children who have special needs, sometimes you can feel like, what's their life going to be like, or the quality of their life when I'm no longer here. And so I would say that 135% that you need to start thinking about estate planning if you have a child who has a disability, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
What was your last question?
Okay, last question. So this is for the people who want to get a will from Wills R Us. And I just made that up. But why should you get an attorney, someone who's experienced in this, as opposed to something off the internet that's going to cost me $30?
Let me say this. If you could write down your wishes on this napkin, take it to probate court and be just fine. I will not criticize Wills R Us. Now, I'm not going to do that because I know some people do the best that they can do. They don't have a whole lot and they're doing something. Doing something is better than doing nothing, but you can always do better. If you can do better, you should. If you have a lot more assets, you don't want a general will. You don't need a simple will. Your will is not simple if you got 5 houses. Like it's just not. But a lot of times we go cheap because we can't afford it, just because we don't want to. And I know this is not Bible study, but I just have to use this example.
Come on.
When you look at when Jesus goes to the temple, right? And the Bible says that we love to talk about he flipped them tables over because he was not playing. Okay. Jesus went up in there and turned that place out, right? There's this part in the Bible, and I wish I had my Bible with me so I could read it, but there's this part in the Bible, the Bible specifically says that they were selling doves. They were selling more stuff than doves in there, but the Bible says that they were selling pigeons and doves, right? There's a reason why God specifically said this, because we worship a God who is so kind and so loving. In the Old Testament, the Lord said you have to sacrifice certain things, but God understood that there were going to be poor people there. So God says, listen, if you can't afford this particular animal, I'm going to allow, for those of you who cannot afford it, you sacrifice the bird, right? And so what was happening in the temple, when you really look at this story, the Lord was so outraged, not just because they had turned the temple into a market, but those who could afford to actually sacrifice the right animal were buying the doves because they wanted to take the cheap way out. When you look at Cain and Abel, the Bible says that Abel's sacrifice was more acceptable. Why? Because of how he gave the best of what he had, because it's what he could give. A lot of times what we do, we go to the Wills R Us, not because we can't afford to have an attorney, but because we want to take the cheap way out. And God has shown us time and time and time again in his word that there are provisions that are made for those who cannot afford certain things in the Bible. God still wanted them to have a way to sacrifice for the forgiveness of their sin. And so he allowed them to have those birds, right? But when the rich people started buying the birds, when they could actually afford the actual sacrifice, Jesus was offended. And that's what I'm saying to you about your estate planning. You're going to suffer the consequences if you do wills are us and you can afford to pay an attorney. But if you cannot afford to pay an attorney, do what you got to do to plan for your folks. But make sure you're not one of the ones in the temple buying the bird and when you really could afford to make the right. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
No, that's good. I forgot one more question, Katrina. So where should we keep these? If we have, two children, should they both get a copy and then we put one in the safe deposit box?
Yeah, you can do it, but you can safe deposit
where?
box. I say everybody get a copy. So they know what's going on. Here's the other thing too. If you have children who are disputing, you will have one child, especially if they're the one that's getting everything, will say, well, they'll contest the will. But if you had this conversation with everybody and everybody know what your wishes are, if the one child says that, oh, my mama was being precious, she wrote it in distress, auntie can be like, well, I talked to her 5 years ago. She told me straight up, these were her wishes. Matter of fact, she told the church, she told everybody. Because again, we're not hiding anything. We're letting people know what our wishes are, friend. So when you talk about keeping it in safe deposit box, you can keep it under your bed, under the pillow, wherever somebody can put their hands on. You just need to make sure you tell folks where it is. So when you die, they can put their hands on it. So
okay. Awesome. Katrina, this is good as always. So good. Tell us how we can contact you. Okay. We got people watching. They're going to go back and watch. We're going to reshare it sometime this evening. How can they contact you for a consultation to get the ball rolling?
So you can go to our website, which is www.creative mind law.com. You can look us up on Facebook, which is Creative Mind Law Firm. Instagram at Your Trademark Attorney. I'm the TikTok queen, so you can find us on TikTok as well. But the website is probably the best way. You can click on contact us and send us fill out the questionnaire, and then one of my assistants will get in touch with you and we'll schedule something from there. But that's the best way to get in touch with us.
Good. Okay. And I just put it in the chats. And so listen, everybody, Pastor Mason always says that after we have something, Winning Wednesday, worship service, whatever it is, that it demands a response from our viewers. And so now that we have had this conversation, Katrina brought out some great points why we need estate planning, I stand corrected, which is composed of different things in that estate planning, but why it is so important, why people don't get it, but it is so important. It's so crucial that if you have anything, that this needs to be done. And so what are you going to do? There are a lot of people, you'll be surprised. We have so many Winning Wednesdays, and then something will happen. And I'm like, we've had this conversation before. So what are you going to do right now at this point? Are you going to continue to not have a will? You continue to I'm going to let them figure it out. Or like some of the old folks used to say, I ain't going to leave it with nothing. No, let's not do that. Let's
not do I didn't even talk about that. But
that's old school, right?
They ain't gonna enjoy my money without me. Right. That is the worst statement I've ever heard. I have a friend, Anthony Sparks. He says this all the time. We ought to want our children to live better than we live, to have more than we have. The problem, let me just add this, and I'm not saying it's a problem with Anthony's statement. 100% he's on point with that. But I would also add this: we need to give them the integrity to be able to manage the more. Right. That's the thing. So.
Right. Exactly. They have wisdom. They have these funds, this money, but they need wisdom along with it. But what are y'all going to do with this information? We've brought Katrina on. Y'all have her website. She is accessible. As you see, she don't play. She gonna tell you she's not gonna tell you something that is gonna tickle your ears and something that sounds cute. She's going to tell you what needs to be done. So please make sure that you contact her, you get with your spouse, whatever it is. I didn't think about even children who are out your house. They need a will. Didn't think about that. Think about that.
And get some insurance. Lord have mercy, sometimes y'all get some. I'm not an insurance agent. I don't get no money. But get some life insurance. Lord, get some life insurance. ASAP. Do that today.
Yes, and we've had a life insurance broker come on. Like she's a broker because so she can find anything for you. You know, she don't work for just one company. We're gonna have her on too, Nikki Ivory of AI Mutual. But thank you, Katrina, for this great information. Listen, when you meet with her, don't be trying to get the hookup.
Oh
All
no,
right.
you won't get it. You won't get that.
Let me go and take it now. Her price is her price. I don't know
Correct.
how much she charged, so you just go ask her. So you know we good for that. So thank you so much, Katrina, for this information. Like I said, people who are watching on Facebook, on YouTube, Twitter, through the My Sunday app, you know, website, make sure you think about how you're going to govern yourself accordingly from this point on. So we have I'm gonna do just a couple announcements for our viewers today, just really quick. Hold on one second. Yeah. So of course we have our small groups that are meeting every Thursday at 7:00 p.m. via Zoom. Make sure you contact us if you want to be a part of it. We are experiencing God. So our small group is for 12 weeks. We are experiencing God. We are knowing how to do the will of God. What does God's will look like for our lives? That's what we're talking about. Great information, great conversation. You want to be a part of that? Please let us know. Send us an email at ladypam@tcowi.org. Of course, our prayer room call is every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 a.m. Of course, you can join in at the number on the screen so that you can also unite with other believers in what you are believing God for. That number is 727-731-0433. On this Saturday, we're going to celebrate the life and legacy of Frances Tate. She is the mother of our very own Monique Tate and Yolanda Lewis, grandmother of Journey Lewis. And so the funeral is going to be at Dante Juck's Funeral Home this Saturday at 1 o'clock p.m. Let's come out and support and really wrap our arms around our dear family during this time. Of course, on Sunday, pastors continue the series, Families That Win. And they are winning by learning to obey those moral concepts and precepts of the 10 Commandments. So great, awesome time word we are getting every Sunday on Families That Win. See you in person at C.W. Hayes School at 10 o'clock a.m. for our temple worship celebrations. Of course, we have a study in the scriptures that is every Tuesday. That's our virtual Bible study that goes on every Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m. We are journeying through the book of Jude. Wonderful time, great time we are having learning that one particular book, one chapter long, is so packed full of information. So we'll see you then. Also, you can also go back and watch the video as well. And then, man, we had a great time on today. Great time on today learning about wills, the importance of wills. Last week, we talked about Alzheimer's. We had Dr. Harmon. She was a living testimony of how her husband got this disease at the age of 50, started showing signs and symptoms at the age of 50. We talked a little bit about wills and what have you. And so I was just really just overwhelmed how God really led this this month Winning Wednesday in conversation, talking about Alzheimer's and then right into wills. And so how important it is to have those advanced directives, so important. So that's what you heard from today. Next week, we're going to talk about what you need to know about colorectal cancer. That's Miss Rochelle Wallace from UAB. So that's going to be another great conversation. So we'll see you guys next Wednesday at 12. Also, we always like to say this. We have a book of the month, The Peacemaker. This is a book that is awesome. It is the biblical guide of resolving personal conflict. This is going to help y'all when y'all talking about these wills. So listen, go ahead and start reading that book as well. We've already said this. We just started our singles lunch and learn and our married couples lunch and learn. We had a great time. We met up at a restaurant, talked, laughed, really learn from one another. That's what you need during these times. You know, iron sharpens iron. And so we had a great time. So look forward to, of course, having these. We're going to be having these on a regular basis. So we will see y'all then. I think I have covered everything. So, of course, like I said before, guys, after hearing this broadcast, it demands a response. So what are you going to do? Don't put this off. I'm good at it too. Sometimes I procrastinate about stuff, but this is something you can't put off. Katrina said it best. Life is a vapor. And so we are here today. We are gone tomorrow. So we don't need to put this off. We need to go ahead and start planning this. And so Katrina, if you could please just leave our guests with something encouraging, something to get them motivated, moving. Just summarize what you said.
I think that the life is but a vapor things, but the Bible also says that a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. So he's not just planning for himself, that the planning process affects generations afterwards. So that's the book. So yeah, the Lord said it best.
Amen. Thank you so much, Katrina, for giving us your time. I know you are super busy and we appreciate you. Listen, everyone, make sure you contact her for your consultation. I'm sorry, www.creativemindlaw.com, creativemindlaw.com. So make sure you contact her on today. Thank you everyone for watching. Hopefully this broadcast was helpful to you. Thank you for your comments in the comment section. And so be blessed. Thank you, Katrina. Have a good one.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
We are on a journey, a destiny that for sure will come to an end. Life's gonna pass with certainty. On this you can depend. Time is on your side, still you can decide what you'll leave behind. God is standing by. Tell me, do you like what you see? Have you been what you wanted to be? What will be your legacy? Are you known for the good that you've done? What will be your legacy? You had one chance to write your story, so what's it gonna be? Your legacy. your legacy.